Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar, starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. While headline indicators suggest a degree of stability, top economists are warning that Trinidad and Tobago's economy remains in a precarious holding pattern where surface-level resilience masks a deepening structural fragility. I wonder if they were realizing that for the past 9.5 years, where everybody seems to just do everything all of a sudden, because UNC is in office. But anyhow, as the media budget review approaches, experts from the University of the West Indies and former finance officials caution that the nation's continued over-reliance on volatile energy markets is stifling real growth in the non-energy sector, which recently saw a 1.2% contraction. Now, see, this is what gets me really disturbed when I read these type of things. They're speaking facts, The reality is, what do you expect to happen? You expect an economy to rebound, to revive in 1 year after 9.5 years of neglect and total destruction, corruption under the mighty morphin Ghanaian PNM. You really expect everything to just recover? It will continue to decline, people. I keep saying this over and over again. There must have been a reason why PNM called elections a few months before it was actually due. Elections here in Trinidad wasn't going to be actually due until probably like around September or so. And yet, Rowley decided to retire early, never gave a reason why. Stuart Young, was appointed as Prime Minister even though he wasn't the political leader of the PNM. And then days later called an election. Something was up. They knew most likely that the economy was close to collapsing and decided, you know what, we are going to call elections, and just in case the UNC end up winning, we wouldn't have to end up taking the fall for the collapse of the economy. That's what happened, people. Anyone with common sense will understand and know that. And the thing about it is, they were not afraid to admit that basically the Treasury was bankrupt. Because when Kamala Persad-Bissessar and her team began to say, okay, we are going to fulfill these particular promises, especially to the public sector, the public servants and stuff like that. A lot of top-ranking PNM PHS came out and asked the question, where are going to find the money to do that? People, go back for yourself. Google it and you will see. They laughed and they said, where are you going to find the money to do that? They knew the economy was basically dead. It was dead. But now the economists are them saying, reliance on the energy sector. What you want them to rely on in order to revive the economy first? Before you can focus on diversification, my dear university experts who have all the bachelor's degrees and stuff like that, you must stabilize it first. And the only thing we can use to be able to stabilize the economy right now and to revive it before it becomes actually prosperous and you can diversify, the first thing we have to do is get back the energy industry functioning the way it's supposed to, which means we have to get focused on reopening Petrotrin as soon as possible. Now, I don't know if they're coming back with the Petrotrin name again, or it will be a different name this time or whatever. But the refinery, we have to make sure that refinery opens as soon as possible so that we can begin to generate a whole lot more foreign revenue. Moving on with the same report, with the debt to GDP ratio climbing toward 84%, and public sector unions like Tutor and NUGFW demanding long overdue back pay, policymakers face a critical deadline to pivot from mere stabilization to aggressive structural reform before mounting fiscal vulnerabilities trigger a more severe economic downturn. Now, the thing about it is, as I said even up to a few days ago, now I expect the government to fulfill their promises to all the various trade unions and public servants out there. The reality is, common sense would have told these teachers and everyone else and nurses and so forth that the government inherited a very serious problem, a broken economy. And therefore, somebody has to end up being first. And the PSA ended up being first because they were the closest allies to the government. Everybody would have done it. PNM would have done the same thing. Everyone will get their fair share, but you have to give them time. But you see, once UNC is in office, no one gives them time. No, they have to repair and fix all the problems that was caused by the previous administration in the shortest space of time possible. Otherwise, the media, these economists, and of course, definitely the public servants, a lot of them who are still PNM patriots, they become outraged and demand everything to be done. I mean, it's nonsense that takes place, and it's hypocrisy, it's double standards. People are being unfair. I'm not saying, once again, let me make this clear. I'm not saying that the government doesn't need to fulfill their promises to these individuals and these groups, but it will take time. Following a triple homicide in Belmont that claimed 3 victims, opposition MP Stuart Young, Zami Youngboy, has demanded the immediate resignations of Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander and Defense Minister Wayne Sturge. This attack undermines recent claims of improved safety, reigniting a national outcry over persistent mass shootings and gang violence. The tragedy serves as a grim reminder of the country's volatile security landscape, which saw murder rates peak at record highs in, listen when, 2024. My response continues with the statistical information here. And I started off my response with, how come the mighty Boffin Ghanaian Zami never called for the resignation of his buddy Fitzgerald Hines while he was the Minister of National Security? PNM's hypocrisy and political games will never end, and we know that, and the mainstream kakash media will never end their hypocrisy and double standards either. The information that I obtained online, the decade spanning 2015 to early 2025, saw Trinidad and Tobago grapple with a harrowing surge in multi-victim homicides as the People's National Movement Administration struggled to contain a landscape of increasingly brazen gang warfare. We all know, they all knew when PNM was in office, and most of these murders were gang-related. All of a sudden, media and everybody trying to wonder what's going on with the country and what UNC doing to cause this to happen. UNC ain't doing anything to cause this to happen. This era was defined by a shift from targeted hits to indiscriminate violence. I tell you, we've been seeing that these mass shootings have become more and more common in the past 5 years especially. So this era was defined by a shift from targeted hits to indiscriminate violence, exemplified by the 2018 Shogunas Boardwalk massacre, where gunmen opened fire on bathers, just because they were looking for their target. But they get so trigger happy now. They don't care who else ends up being killed during their wars now. Caught in the crossfire. Right, so exemplified by the 2018 Chaguaramas Boardwalk massacre, where gunmen opened fire on bathers, and the more recent 2025 Guanapo home invasion that claimed 3 lives in a single room. From the 2016 broad daylight executions in Dabadi to the grim discovery of 4 siblings slain in the heights of Guanapo in 2023, all that was under the mighty Morphin Ghanaian coal pot bicycle PNM people. These double and triple murders became a chilling national fixture. So unlike the kakash media, and unlike the PNM patriots outside here, my small channel will continue to debunk the lies being spewed by these individuals who are just out there to try to make the UNC look as though they are just failing and causing more problems in the country. When once again, the same way how they inherited a bankrupt economy, they inherited this crime crisis, people. Now, putting that aside, as I've said for a very long time now, right? For months upon months now, I honestly don't believe that Roger Alexander is the most appropriate man for the job, but I do see that he's improving. And once someone is improving, I am going to give them my support. I honestly believe the better man for the job would have been like Gary Griffith, right? Even though he has a lot of, like kind of arrogant ways about him and stuff like that. But a Minister of Homeland Security under the Prime Minister, that would have been a nice position for him. But the Prime Minister made her choice and decided she's going to keep Roger Alexander. And I guess with more guidance and so forth, he's definitely improving in my opinion. But once again, the thing about it is, and what the media continues to fail to tell people and fail to tell the government, is that but whether PNM in office or UNC in office, you cannot really reduce the crime crisis when you have a corrupt TTPS fighting crime. We are talking about TTPS that is plagued with a lot of rogue cops that are involved in extortion, drug trafficking, and extrajudicial killings. You cannot fight crime with criminals, right? There are many good officers outside there. People always think as though I'm trying to label all officers as bad. No, they are good officers. Even the good ones do break the normal basic laws, that violate the normal laws that citizens, law-abiding citizens also break, like the traffic violations. It's just that because they are above the law, they don't get charged for parking by a corner or illegally parking in a no parking zone and stuff like that. Their partners will just watch them and get them out bounce and go on their way. But that's a whole different topic. So you cannot reduce the crime crisis in Trinidad and Tobago as long as you have an incompetent and corrupt TTPS. With a detection rate that is still probably less than 20. I think it's even less than 10 still. How you expect to reduce crime? And most of all, the gang cult indoctrination. The media pushes it. The DJs push it. They glorify weed, a drug called weed, in the media. And they also glorify badness, gang culture, gang affiliation. They censor the songs, but everyone knows what are the unedited versions. And therefore, when they're hearing these DJs and everyone promoting it and wheeling selector and running the tune again, then these youths especially believe that this is a good and normal way of life, when it only leads to an early death. Gang culture needs to be addressed, and it needs to be banned. All these DJs need to be banned and prohibited from glorifying this demonic type of lifestyle on our airwaves.
Friday, May 8, 2026 weather summary. The day will be mostly sunny, hazy, and breezy. Conditions are expected to be generally fair, though there is a low 30% chance of brief afternoon showers. Temperature at high will be 31 degrees Celsius and the low will be 25 degrees Celsius. Saharan dust. A mild concentration of Saharan dust will be present, creating hazy skies throughout the day. Wind. Expect easterly winds around 10 miles per hour, becoming breezy at times. Humidity. Average humidity will be around 65%. Sun and moon. Sunrise, 5:43 am. Sunset, 6:18 p.m. Moon phase, last quarter.
This week's regional headlines were dominated by Guyana's defense of the Essequibo at the International Court of Justice and the arrival of CARICOM election observers in the Bahamas. While Georgetown fought for territorial sovereignty, Jamaica faced domestic friction as Manchester dealt with a spike in violent crime, and St. Catherine residents protested for better beach access and infrastructure. And that is in spite of their version of the Zoso law in Jamaica. So I'm telling you, those kind of laws only have a certain amount of effect anyhow you take it. You need to address the police corruption and gang culture. These events underscore a Caribbean currently balancing high-level international diplomacy with the urgent grassroots demands for safety and civic rights. On the economic front, Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines prioritized fiscal agility to buffer against global instability. While Bridgetown strengthened investment ties with Guyana's energy sector, Kingstown fast-tracked contractor payments and advanced plans for a national development bank to boost local credit access. Supported by new trade partnerships via the Caribbean Development Bank, these moves signal a broader regional shift toward economic self-reliance and intra-Caribbean cooperation amidst ongoing recovery efforts. International news now. The week's global landscape was defined by a push for peace through strength as the Trump administration moved closer to a comprehensive deal to end hostilities with Iran, following a successful blockade that crippled the regime's ability to fund regional proxies. Right now they're losing millions of dollars in revenue. Washington is now advancing a 14-point peace proposal designed to permanently strip Tehran of its nuclear ambitions and secure global waterways. Now, in one way, they might be able to control them to an extent. They ain't gonna have no peace with these individuals. Those are terrorists. The terrorists, Ayatollah terrorists, who remain along with the IRGC, their army, that personal army that the Ayatollah have. They are not going to stop their mission to usher in their Messiah and also to destroy Israel and America. It's not going to change people. Following a successful blockade that crippled the regime's ability to fund regional proxies, Washington now is advancing a 14-point peace proposal designed to permanently strip Tehran of its nuclear ambitions and secure global waterways. Despite minor skirmishes in the Strait of Hormuz, met by swift American defensive strikes, the U.S. remains committed to a diplomatic resolution that prioritizes both national security and the stabilization of global energy markets. In Israel, the military focus remains the absolute neutralization of extremist threats. That's the way you're supposed to think about it. Evidenced by recent precision strikes against elite command units in Beirut to halt cross-border drone incursions. Domestically, the U.S. is mirroring this disciplined approach by pivoting toward affordability-first policies to counter war-induced inflation and restoring critical supply chains. This era of decisive governance was further underscored by Chief Justice John Roberts, who recently defended the Supreme Court's duty to uphold constitutional integrity and the rule of law regardless of political pressure.
Bible quote of the day. Zechariah 12:10. And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that, when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps over a firstborn.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report, Friday's version. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.